Great, thank you so much, Ali. This is a wonderful privilege to share with you. And this topic that we're going to be talking about has been deeply in my leadership research in the last couple of years, and I would say the last 5 years. And it has turned out that from a leadership perspective, on how to win and keep the right to be bold has always been in the heart of those who pursue leadership somehow. And I would like to start sharing that one of the reasons this is going to have a little bit of information around trust is because let me share with you 3 key researches that recently transformed the way we look at it. Ken Blanchard, he did a research on 1,000 leaders and found out that 95% left their previous organizations due to trust issues. We have another research that says that merits, and they say that 7% of workers strongly agree to trust their leaders, but not because they do search for their best interests, which means that 93% of them mistrust them. So, and we have another research that says it was performed by Mastery Work, which ties up the lack of trust with high employee turnover. So people basically are more productive when they exist in an environment of productivity that comes along from the leadership trust that the leader exemplifies and the environment it creates. One of the sad things is people might stay in organizations, but they emotionally have already quitted some time ago. We have to prevent that. So how can we do people in leadership work that are together, but to be able to, and so I want to, it's going to be at the heart of this. My objective among us, leadership influence goes up, and some of the key addressing today, introduction to the topic, then I'm going to talk in organizations, how the leader's trust impacts trustworthiness within the ranks of any kind of organization. And thirdly, let's talk about more specific and practical portions of it on how to win and keep the right to be followed by somehow building trust through 4 core things. It's going to be a summary. The many things that we can be talking about is going to be summarized in capacity, credibility, connection, and consistency. And I will talk a little bit more about it. Let me begin with an introduction around the topic. Many of you might be familiar with the World Bank report, Doing Business. There might be many other reports that somehow directs us to the same conclusion, that for an economy, or for a company, or for a country, or for a region of the world, the lack of trust difficult doing business. It's difficult to do business if people do not trust one another, if companies do not trust one another, and if the government do not trust their people, or the people do not trust their governments. Some economists even call it the spiritual capital of an entity, or let's call it the intangibles, the intangible capital, which is the capital upon which people will be able to construct the tangible side of it. So some factors such as degree of trust, workforce capacity, clarity in proprietary rights, government effectiveness, and judicial system efficiency are mainly at the heart of what this intangible capital is all about. And there is a close connection to the intangible capital that an economy has to its capacity to build the tangible side of it. and there is a close connection to it. And most of the research and most of the numbers that you can see from developed countries are there is a close connection, a close tie among those two factors. So when we see that, we can think in terms of the leaders as the responsible of creating that environment, of creating an environment of trust. It is something that you cannot delegate if you're the leader of an organization. And I would like to quote Max Dupree. He says the first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. The last one is to give thanks, and in between the leader serves. But I want to emphasize the first one, which is defining reality. It's knowing where you are so you are able to do something about it. And it usually connects with not only who you are in terms of understanding yourself as a leader and also the organizational context, but more importantly, I would say to understand where is the people that is involved in the process in terms of their emotional reality, in terms of their capacities, in terms of their willingness to go in a certain direction that the leader might provide as. And so Henry Cloud, it also says that leaders face reality as is. So we want to pursue where we are and where we should be going, but mainly we want to see where our followers are and our collaborators are at any particular moment, so we can move along with them, not in spite of them, but with them. And so leadership is somehow that relational positive phenomenon that occurs between leaders and followers, which in turn generates influence. And I wanted to share with you this picture of these two men, and they're basically sharing what they think, what they feel, their emotions, and at the same time, when you tied up their hands, it's somehow a picture of the reality that they have to share the action. So when we try to lead, it's all about leading with people and not only and merely being followed by them. So when we think as leaders, we cannot delegate the creation of the sense of culture within the organization that we're leading. We are the only ones that will end up inspiring the well-being of the people, but also the well-acting of the people. And we are those who orchestrate the enabling exchange among collaborators. We cannot ask for someone else to develop, design the way we want to approach the interactions within the organization. We have to make sure that we not only are seated in the right place, in the right seat, but we are also in charge of creating, inspiring, and orchestrating the key things that move around the organization. And when we talk about, I would like to shift a little bit and talk about trust and why this is so important. This is the key, for me, this is the key to make sure that people will want to trust you, will want to follow you, will want to keep on following you in the long term. And a dictionary mentions this, the Spanish Academy Dictionary. I found it very interesting the way it puts it. It says the firm hope that one has about someone or something, the security that someone has about something, and the strength and the breadth to act, the willingness to act, and the force, the strength, and lastly, the familiarity in treating others, in a sense of familiarity occurring the exchanges. So when we see that, and I want to share with you some of the research or other concluding information that I found very interesting from a research that was made and took place in 2000 through an instrument that was called Measuring Organizational Trust, and it compared 4,000 collaborators from 8 countries around the world, and it concluded that trust is a social virtue and an economical imperative for global sustainability. So if you want to make that you have a sustainable model of business, you have to have somehow a leadership culture that embraces trust. Also, they concluded that the capacity to form relationships of trust with various people groups is the social capital of all entities. So your capacity to relate to others, will somehow be considered the social capital that you might have at a certain point. And also they concluded that trust predicts effectiveness. There's a close tie between your capacity to perform and your capacity to have for execution in terms of the organizational pursuits and trust. They also mentioned and found it highly related with all things that pertain to the organizational realm. It is not that it will affect only the financial dimension of it. No, it will actually impact the whole organizational realm. They also found, and it might probably be easy to see, that there are some factors that bust it and some factors that build it. If any of you have gone through any relationship where trust was turned down at a certain moment, you know how difficult it is then to come back and rebuild it. And that's one of the key things that I want to highlight later on in the presentation. But one of the things, and I'm sure you already have thought about it and experienced it, it's a complex thing. It's not easy to build trust, but it's a possible and a necessary thing that we need nowadays to perform business. So trustworthy leaders somehow permeate the organizational culture and processes with reliability. So when we build around ourselves trust, it will impact our teams, and there will be a sense of trust among them that will somehow impact even the way we produce things, the way we deliver service, the way we deliver value to the market. Authors Bennis and Nanas in 1985, it was way back in 1985, they were already writing about the importance for this era around trust. They said trust is the lubricant that makes organizations to function and the glue that keeps the organizational integrity. And I want to show you through a couple of slides in the coming moment some of the benefits. If you have an organization and you want to know, okay, what are the benefits of trust? Well, this organization, Great Place to Work, which works around the world, trying to measure what makes some environments, organizational environments, to be more desired to be in by more people, or what creates a better environment for people to stay. And they literally found out that the #1 topic is trust. And they say, well, trust is important because the organizations that has a stronger financial performance. They have less employee turnover. They also have more employment applications compared to other kinds of organizations. And also there's a greater integration of workforce. Beyond that, there was a sense also of increased spirit of cooperation and organizational commitment to mission, vision, and values. So if I stop here and I ask, would you like some of these benefits to come along within your organization? Most of you will say, yes, of course, I would like some of it. But then what's the key to it? Well, the key to it is to build from a leadership culture of trust the essentials around it. Let me show you another perspective of what trust can do for in terms of the investments. Let's say you invested in 1998 $100 in the Russell Investments 3000. Well, you would have gotten in 2010 $172. But if you invested $100 in the Standard Poor's and Poor's 500 index, you would have gotten 163. But if you would have invested $100 in the Fortune 100 index, you would have gotten $391. So the level of scarcity in terms of the amount of companies that have a higher degree of trust, they have all their performances, all their systems created in such a way that they might predict a consistent way of existence in the market. It will somehow have an impact on their capacity to produce increased results even in monetary terms. So it's it's a good deal. It's a good investment to put your money into something that is trustworthy. That's one of the things that I wanted to share with you. But in a book that Mr. Covey and some other authors put together a couple of years ago, talking about trust, it says, well, why is it that I don't trust capacity to produce even more workers? Well, the down costs will us to be more prosperous in some costs. And what when you mistrust related to more in terms of making done, you have to cameras, you have to put it, you have to increase the level of parts, you have to increase let's say you sign because you do not trust. But if you build an organization around by, will be more focused doing what they're supposed to be doing and not looking to somehow cover their backs along the way. They will be focused on doing what they're supposed to be doing. And at the end, it also puts up the enjoyment of life, the enjoyment of what you are doing. If you trust those who you're working with, it brings you a sense of peace, and it brings a sense of peace to those you're working with. So it's an equation that makes us think very deeply. And as we think in terms of how this thing of trust and how, from a leadership perspective, what can we do to make sure that within the organizations we create better places where people not only want to work, but they also perform in a higher level and deliver the results that we're expecting for them to deliver. I found out this research by Great Place to Work, this organization I just mentioned, very interesting. They researched among 10 million participants, 45 countries, 5,500 organizations. They have 58 metrics to determine the standard of what is an excellent place to work. And the premise here is that the work environment highly determines organizational success. And they saw in that research 3 different perspectives of what a good or a great or wonderful and excellent place to work is. From an outsider's perspective, it's a great place to work is those who are built around through experienced workers obtained from their daily interactions, not through programs or benefits. And from a collaborator's perspective, those where you trust in the people you work for, feel proud of what you do, and like the people you work with. And from the leader's perspective, a great place to work are those where organizational objectives are achieved with collaborators who give their very best and work together as a team or family. So if you see these 3 perspectives, I'm sure you're thinking just like me, I want to have that kind of organization. And in the midst of it, in the core, in the heart of it, is the people trusting you as a leader, trusting among each other as a team, and trusting in the direction that the leader is putting for the organization in such a way that the environment that is created is worth working in. So I want to summarize here, and this is my concluding portion of research, is that those 9 elements that I share with you, that you have in front of your presentation, are the key factors that create organizational trust. There are way more that I would love to explore. However, out of some of the research we've done, I would say that the first one is competence, or the capacity, the perceived capacity of someone to deliver, a leader to deliver. It's going to be very important for people around them to trust in the leader. Second one is the openness and honesty, especially within the communicational realm. Third one is worrying about employees. Worrying implies caring about them, making sure they are well developed, they're well kept, and well thought about. Fourth is reliability. Fifth is the identification, as it's called by Shockley and Salabak and other authors, or the capacity of someone to identify themselves with the organization. And number 6 is reciprocity. Number 7 is a sense of justice within an organization. If you're treating me well and treating others well, then I can have a sense of a leader being and creating an environment of justice, and that somehow ties me and connects me in a higher level with the leadership of the organization. And on the other hand, number 8, we have support and professional development. If you have an organization that supports and encourages people to develop in their, not only on a personal side, but also from the professional side, it usually puts you in a position of being more trustworthy, because they get to see you as someone who's not only interested in developing the higher goal of the organization, but you're also interested in them as human beings and having them as professional development as part of their design. And lastly, an organization that encourages participation. That key element is also added to the trust in organizations. Now I want to summarize, and I would like to, as a way of putting it in a simple terms and something you can take with you from this webinar, is to synthesize in 4 specific and concrete things. One of them, basically taking the model of trust made by Ken Blanchard, that there are 4 things that help you build or restore trust. As first of all, being able. Second of all, being believable. Thirdly, being connected to the people. And fourth, being dependable. Someone worth following because, as a leader, follows up on promises. And if we see that in a different perspective, we can ask some questions. I would like to make a quick stop here and ask you a few questions. How you feel from what we've been sharing, and before I share with you a couple of tips, a couple of summarized realities and from a practical point of view that you can take from here. But let's reflect on that. Can the people trust in you even during difficult situations? Or given your own congruence as a leader, are you predictable to others? And predictable not in a sense that you are a boring leader. No, in a way, what I mean is predictable in a way that people know that they can expect from you to behave properly, to look after their interest properly, and to make sure that you connect to them in a wonderful and pleasant way. The third question I want to ask you is that, are you followed by merit, or are you followed by your followers, your collaborators, by other means, by other reasons? Does your team trust one another? Do they somehow connect in a way that trust is in the midst of their interactions? And lastly, how trustworthy is your organization? If we would have to measure your organization in the market in terms of trust, can people trust not only the products that you deliver, the quality of the processes and the systems you have in place, but also the leaders, the people that are within? Are they looking after going into the competition, or they want to stay there because of the organization provides an environment for such thing? So these questions, I just wanted to have you think through what we're going to go into. And I want to then close and come into the last portion of the presentation to share with you how you can do to win and keep the right to be followed. Because it's a right you have to win. It's not going to come only because you're nice or you have a lot of expertise. There are 4 things I want to suggest. All of them, by the way, begin with a C, so you can remember them easily. It's capacity, credibility, which I call the ability or the ability to be believable by others. And then thirdly, the connection that you have with the people. And lastly, the consistency of your delivery. It's not that you're emotionally in a level today and a week from now people cannot see that same level of consistency in your performance. So let's go with the first one, the capacity. It's about being able, and let me share with you that this thing of trust will help you as a leader be followed easily by your people. It's a matter of perception. It's a matter of reality of who you are, but at the same time, it's a matter of perception. Would you trust someone you do not think is capable of delivering what has just said it's going to deliver? Or let's say a leader of a corporation shares the vision for the next 3 to 5 years. Do you think if people do not trust the capacity of the leader who delivered the vision, will they join the vision? Will they join the leader? Well, probably not. So the capacity, it's about a leader continually developing and demonstrating its competence, its capacity. A leader must solve and resolve. It's about the know-how to get the things done. It's the people around them perceiving that the person is able and capable of carrying through the mission and the vision of the organization. So it's connected into three things. It has to do with cognitive skill. Stockdale, by the way, called it capacity. It's also related to confidence of action. Someone who acts out of trust. Platon talked about it as a timos. This is a Greek word, timos. And an unstoppable spirit, passion, strength, maybe. And so confidence of action is usually seen by followers as someone being trustworthy. Says, well, because he's acting out of confidence. Maybe it's because he knows how to do that. Well, not necessarily always happens like that, and the reason behind that is because of that, but usually it's connected to the confidence of action. And lastly, the emotional security. There's usually a positive correlation with good practices, total performance, and new products that come along with the security, the emotional security that people have or leaders have when they perform. So these three things are usually you're smart, you're confident when you act, and you have emotional security. Those are reflections of your capacity to lead. Secondly, the second aspect of for you to win the right to be followed is credibility. It's about a leader with character and integrity. Integrality, which is integrity in a sense of putting all who you are in a whole, in a coherent whole, in something that allows people to model or to see you as a model, and you modeling the way and saying, hey, it's not about you having in certain areas of your life success, but also in your leadership performance. It's an integral vision of performance. And a leader is someone noble, trustworthy, loyal, worthy to be trusted, or to receive someone else's deposit of confidence. It's someone who provides security. It's dependable, whose track of fidelity is proven. Someone who knows it has only one heart, and it's to fulfill the mission of the organization. And basically, DWSSYWD, you know what it means, says doing what you said you would do. This portion has to do, and integrity is that if you offered something, will you carry that out? Will you make all the effort to make sure that that takes place, not only takes place, but also takes place within the sphere or the time frame that it was offered or it's supposed to be delivered. And it's a phrase that came out from Cousins and Posner, if some of you have read Good Leadership Challenge. And they basically said the position provides to leaders their authority, but it is their behavior that makes them gain respect. It is the consistency among words and actions what constitutes the leader's credibility. So if you want to have credibility, then it's mainly about the consistency about among what you say and what you do, and it's also related to the intentional openness and transparency that you might show. as I mentioned earlier, the capacity to be predictable, not in a boring or in a negative sense, but in a sense that people know you're not going to come with something new out of the scope or out of what was offered. And a significant degree of calm and stability is created among collaborators when you are intentionally open to your people. People experience peace. There's a connection to the capacity of an environment to experience peace, to the capacity of its leaders to be open and transparent in their performance. When a leader proves trustworthiness, it nurtures the followers' commitment towards the leaders and their organization. So if you are a trustworthy leader, usually your followers will not only want to follow you, but they will also commit to the organization. There are many researchers that go in that direction. And also, a leader in this sense is someone who sustains and lives out their core beliefs, not only defines them, identifies them, but also somehow sustain them on a daily basis through all what they do. And also, in this sense, affirms vision, not only with hope and expressing out the desired future, but also in a sense of connection between what you're doing in connection and coherence with the vision that you're pursuing. So in this sense, it provides favorable conditions of existence to the organizational ecosystem. Basically, a leader with this dimension, someone who is always pursuing the best for the people, their well-being, their well-acting for the people. And how do you do that? Well, you can add vitality to the commitments you have made, and validity to the words you have delivered. Let your yes be really yes, and your no be really no. It seems like a very simple quote, but it's powerful in a sense that people want to know that when you say something, you don't have to sign a contract to make them comfortable because you said so. You just want to say something, and that your word will be backed up by a life of integrity, by a lack of delivery in the past, in the present, and in the future. The third dimension is the dimension of being connected, the connection. Let me put you in a very simple phrase. If people feel you're far away, if you're disconnected, they simply have a harder work to trust in you. I know it's a very big challenge for people who have big corporations to make sure they keep connected. Once I was sharing with a friend who we were going through the doctoral program together some time ago, and he said, you know what, I can communicate with the president of the corporation through our inner chat that we have in our corporation. I said, yeah, right. How can you do that? It's a 42,000 people corporation. How can you do that? How can he make sure that he responds to you immediately when you ask him for something? He said, well, we have created such an environment. And I said, well, do that right now to see if it works. And he did it, and you know what? And the president of that corporation responded to him. And well, I wouldn't recommend that to all of you because that might be a little challenging. But what I'm trying to say is that if people feel you're nearby, you're not apart from where they are and disconnected to the reality of their floor, it's basically something that will get you in a position of people wanting to follow you more wholeheartedly. It's about a leader that remains close in interaction and manifests continual and genuine appreciation to the close ones. It's not once in a while that you manifest that. It's continual appreciation that is demonstrated to all of them. So trust is forged in the relational, not in isolation. It's something that you forge. It's like the iron sharpening iron type of thing. It's not, it doesn't somehow get forged by itself. The iron needs the interconnected and the relational exchange that is created through the human interaction that will allow us to build trust. You're not going to do it apart from the people. You do it with the people, as you can exemplify your faith, your capacity to see into the future with hope, and they can see you nearby. They see, oh, we have a courageous leader. Did you see how he acted based upon what was happening? Or how can the people know what are your values and whether they are aligned or not if they don't see you when you take the daily decisions? So it's very important that we see the relational very connected to what we want to do, as we want to get followed by the people. So trust is built, levels of trust are earned, and trust can be passed not only from a generation to another within the organizational realm, but also from a sense of the interaction that our companies, our organizations have with clients, with all kinds of, let's say, to those who we interact with. To follow, we want to have people follow us based on reputation, not on hierarchy. And the last one that I want to share with you, last dimension, is to be consistent. And being consistent has to do with the work of execution. It has to be with your capacity to obtain results. It's about a leader who dominates execution, follows up to what has been agreed. Let's say you agree that there are 2 to 3 organizational objectives, or maybe your team have agreed around certain issues. And one of the key things is that people will ask, is this leader going to help us, going to deliver, going to follow through, going to not only say he wants to do something, but says that he's going to do it and he will follow through this week, next week, or will he forget the previous goal with new information coming in, or will he or she be coherent in this sense? So for that, Bennis and Nana says, leaders are trustworthy and tirelessly persistent. So there's a connection. If people see you, that you're persistent in the way you want to perform things, they will say, you know what, this leader is someone I want to follow, I want to keep on following. Many proclaim their loyalty, but who can find nowadays someone worth of our trust, especially in the area of where people is seeing a very challenging way to approach among the 2 or 3 or 4 different generations, or the value systems that have people with different ages within organizations. How can you find and define trust within each of the different generations that are part of the workforce nowadays? And how can we make sure that we deliver trustworthy results for the good of the organization, for the good of the people, and for the good of us? So it's about long-term congruence. It's about mutual trust as a dimension of appreciation. And it's about showing people and delivering what we're doing with the minimum of surprises. Von Krug and other authors, they say to leverage trust in others and self-reputation, you should behave consistently toward that person with a minimum of surprises, so the person might be helped to grow through time. When you minimize your average of surprises that you deliver to people, people will end up wanting to not only hang around with you more as a leader, but also will want to follow you to the pursuit of the dimensions of the organization. So I want to share, and lastly, these specific tips that you can probably pursue. First of all, and I want to remind you that it is only your commitment, it's only you as a leader that has the capacity to define the greater reality the organization moves in, and always it's like that. It's not going to be something that you can delegate to anyone. Also, if you commit to transparency, you have greater results. Make sure you find and keep a mentor or a coach, someone who might be doing you or asking you the right questions to make sure that you as a leader are in good track according to what you said you were going to do. Someone who will help you follow through so you can be more trustworthy to other people. And try to keep an efficient communicational system, I would say, for optimal accessibility. I mentioned earlier about this corporate leader that was in contact with all his employees, 42,000 employees, if they wanted to contact him. Maybe you might want to find a more efficient way for you, but at the end, you need to find an efficient way of people communicating to you and communicating what they want to communicate to you, and you communicating to them. And that's one of the things I've seen in our consulting and our training. It's one of the factors that most of the leaders fail most. They haven't sat down and designed a consistent system of communication. Also, you can ask for continuous feedback from followers. That's usually very helpful for you to make sure that you're who you really are, not only who you think you are. And for that, I suggest also that you can restore lost trust. If you have been performing and people have lost trust in you as a leader, so it's a good time for you to go back and go in and talk to them and see how can you restore that loss, and tell them intentionally that you want to get it back. Also, give answers of trust. When you trust someone, it's usually an act of risk, and usually it comes accompanied with reciprocity. So don't wait until people trust in you. Trust in them first. The reciprocity will perhaps follow. Not immediately sometimes, but it will come, and it will pay good fruits. Also, empower and delegate properly. If you don't do that, people will not trust you as you could, and you will not win the right to be followed, because they have a sense of you concentrating power instead of delivering and liberating power. Also, show authenticity and genuine vulnerability. If they see you are a human being, that you can make mistakes, and you tell them in a very authentic way, they will, you know what, they will somehow want to be with you. Say, this is another human being. He's not in an ivory tower. And well, and also listen to them. Listen to what they have to say. They will appreciate only the fact that you're willing to listen to their requests, their needs, and their emotions. And at the same time, please honor commitments. If you said you were going to do something, make sure you do it. If not, try not to offer it. Otherwise, you will lose the capacity for them to be willing to follow you. And it comes out to 4 very simple things. And I wanted to leave you with these 4 basic things. 4 essential keys of trust for high-performing teams. Come to a very basic thing for kids. We can begin from the very beginning. It's make sure you learn how to give, how to receive, how to offer, and how to ask for things. If we build around these 4 basic things, we will end up having a more connected followers and teams. So these are the 4 ways we can build up the capacity to win and keep the right to be followed. It's capacity, credibility, connection, and consistency. And remember that leadership trust goes up by the stairs and descends in elevators. So make sure you build around what you're doing from a trust perspective, and you will have people following you, willing to follow you, and following you sustainably in a way that will help you be the leader you want to be and achieve the results of the organization that should be achieved. Thank you. I hope you have enjoyed and grasped some of the information, and I will be more than glad and open to if any of you have any questions, that we can keep the conversation up.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Sampedro, for a very interesting presentation. Folks, we are now open for the question and answers. If you have any questions, you could put it in the question box, or you could raise your hand. There's a hand icon available on the webinar console, so you can click on it. But let me go straight to the question box. With the first question, why is trust so underestimated in the current organizational realm, given that it seemed to have such a relevant impact in the overall organizational performance?
Well, I would say 2 things. One is that most people do not know the exact numbers or the statistics of the impact. in the beginning of the presentation, I shared that there's a 95% of people leaving organizations because of trust issues. They didn't trust their leaders, or they didn't trust their team members. So when you provide some people with that information, with those statistics, then people will say, hey, you know what, we need to make sure we do something about it. If we want to have people follow us through accomplish the organizational mission and vision and the philosophic outlook, we will have to make sure that people understand the dimension of lack of trust. And another reason is because it's usually, I have found when I have consulted some organizations around how to build trust, most of the leaders might know now the importance of building it, but they just don't know how to do it or where to start from. And usually something that starts building around the individual side of it from a leader's perspective. Then you work with the team, and then you will see the effect in the organization. So, but people want to start right away from the organizational point of view, but it's something that will come out from the individual, then the team, and then the organizational dimension. So most people just don't do too much around trust because they just don't know how to where to start from, or how to move around the key elements around trust. Those are mainly, there are some other dimensions, but those are the two that I see the most relevant to the question.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another one. How trust can be developed in an organizational setup where every individual understands that we can only be successful by competing through a good negotiation skills.
Excuse me. Can you repeat the question?
Okay, I think it's a bit strange. How trust can be developed in an organizational setup where every individual understands that we can only be successful by competing through good negotiations skills.
Yes, well, you're right. We have been taught about how can we negotiate and we can get the best out of a deal. But I would suggest only seeing the long-term effects of the culture that is built around an organization. When people have a sense of competing and decision-making is built around the best negotiation skills, you might get good deals in the moment. But the question is, will they produce lasting results? Will it be good for the long term, for the establishment of solid and long-term and sustainable relationships? And so I would suggest that only, it's not that negotiation skills are not necessary, it's just that they have to come along with the need to see a sense of consistency in the way we interact with our clients, providers, or those who are around our ecosystem, organizational ecosystem. And I would say it's usually, as I mentioned earlier, it's not an easy pursuit, but I would suggest working from the culture around certain values that are connected to trust. If we not only negotiate, but also make sure that we have certain, for example, I mentioned justice. If I raise up the hand with the value of justice within everything I do, we do, and the way we treat people and the way people treat others, we're only leveraging somehow the need to do fair negotiations. So it's not something that will compete one against the other. It's just we can try to build a culture of both trust and wise negotiation skills alongside building an environment of trust.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another one. What if trust has been broken within an organizational code? Is there any hope?
Well, yes, there's hope. There's hope. We have seen many corporate executives confess their lack of trust in the system they have created, and they have somehow confessed the need to have all of the people within the organization to help reconstruct it. So it's a matter of understanding how it works. What are the key elements that bust the trust, and what are the key elements that build trust within an organization, and begin from there with an assessment with people and talk to them. That's it's usually tell executives you need to talk to people and ask them, have I uh, done something that somehow uh, turn down the trust that you could have in me? Am I not being trustworthy by certain things that I have done? And what can I do about it? And from there, maybe you're not going to do everything people will tell you, but at least you will be in a better position to understand where they're coming from. And that literally tracks us out or down to a very simple term, which is an approach to leadership that is always willing to improve the way it connects to their followers. If you're willing to make a deeper connection, if you're always willing to have a closer exchange with them and have a better understanding of where they are from or where they are at, it's usually a better position for you to build trust. And so going back to the question, yes, there's hope, but only as you get close to them, you will understand better their needs, and from there you will begin assessing yourself, your team, and your organization, and beginning to do something about it. I have seen many cases, many corporate cases that have gone out from a lack of trust and then regaining it from the people. And one of them, let me put an example around it. It's a corporation that sells pizza around the world, and through some time of difficulties, they found out that they were unfocused on what they were doing. And so the CEO just brought about the issue and said, well, we need to gain back trust from our customers, but before we do that, we need to gain trust from within our own ranks, because we won't be effective out if we're not effective in. And they began to listen to their own employees' suggestions about what could be done to bring back the company into a good performance or a position of performance. And they delivered a few interviews and also a few assessments, and from there they were able to create a strategy that brought them out of the lack of trust internally, and then they were able to go out and perform very differently. And it turned out to be a very successful story of not only making profits, but at the same time regaining the trust among everyone inside the organization.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Jesus. That really brings us towards the end of the webinar. I really want to thank you on behalf of the Madinah Institute of Leadership and Entrepreneurship for your valuable time and for delivering this live presentation through our platform. So thank you very much. And thank you all of those who participated in this webinar and for posting interesting questions. We are recording this webinar, so please stay tuned to webinar.mile.org to access the upcoming webinars and also to access the archive section of our knowledge depository. Thank you very much once again, Dr. Jesus Sampedro, and